Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for coming back to the Automation Studio Bootcamp. We, in 2024, we did at the end of the year, we wrapped up the fundamental sessions. Now we're going to be diving into the deep dive session. Got about 15 or so sessions coming up on the Automation Studio. So looking forward to this. This is the first one. We're going to be going over the data views and how to build a data view history automation in Marketing Cloud. We've got some upcoming sessions on this in the Automation Studio Bootcamp, as well as JB is launching an Agentforce bootcamp, which is definitely worth checking out. So on Thursday of this week, we've got Amy Zielinski, who's going to be, actually, I think I've got that date wrong. I think it is this Thursday, the 16th. She's going to be going over automating contact cleanup. And then on the topic of the Automation Studio Bootcamp, on the 21st, we've got two sessions actually with D-Select, Anthony Lamont, who's going to be covering two parts of D-Select. The first one on the 21st is segmentation, and the second one is on send frequency. If you're not familiar with D-Select, definitely take a look at it. You can get a free demo. It's a fantastic tool. Sprinkled in this calendar are some Agentforce, programs related to the Agentforce Bootcamp. That officially kicks off on the 21st of next week. She's got, I think, 8 sessions going, so definitely check the Bootcamp virtual community for those. We are also doing, with the Boston community group, we're doing a Agentforce workshop this Saturday from 10 to noon, and also the following Saturday as well. So 2 hours on the weekend, a little bit of time off of, outside of work, where you can get a Agentforce org, build prompts, build agents, all different types of use cases. So I'll look out for that. That is all on the calendar that you use to sign up here. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to be going over today. We're going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive into data views themselves. We're going to take even a closer look to the click data view, one I think a lot of us might use more often than not. And we'll talk about our use case, and then we're going to go right into the platform and build out the click data view query and start that automation just to sort of get that in motion. And then, as we always do, end with 5 tips. Let's talk about data views. So for those who aren't familiar with them, it's like an extra set of data extensions that Marketing Cloud provides to you. You don't get to pull them up in Marketing Cloud. They're sort of hidden behind the scenes, but they're just like data extensions. You can query them. Some of the limitations are that the fields are fixed, so you can't add, to these data extensions. Marketing Cloud controls them. They have data retention settings. We're going to be going over that quite a bit of detail today. For most part, they only capture that data for the last 6 months. Thus the reason for this history automation. If you want any of these great data extensions or data view data, you're going to want to capture that on a daily basis so that you can have that data beyond 6 months. They're super handy. Obviously, you can leverage those in the SQL queries. We'll be looking at those today. And there are some key data view groupings. We're going to go in detail. There's subscriber, email, subscription, and journey data views. So let's talk about the first data view, subscriber. Good thing about the subscriber data view is that it is the full picture of your data views in your Marketing Cloud environment. If you have a multi-BU scenario, that can depend. That might just only be the subscribers on the admin layer or the parent layer. But if you have a single BU, which we can demonstrate, it is able to pull in all of your subscribers. The enterprise attribute, I haven't really used this much. It just gives you information on your profile and your preference. So we're going to dig in right into the platform and build this, but I just wanted to give you an example. We can proof this out so that you can see that this data view does contain all of your subscribers. So let's just quickly do that in the platform, just to sort of walk through that. And before I do that, I just want to give you this link for this great documentation. Matthews Dabrowski has a fantastic overview of data views, has all of those different, I literally stole his, how he characterized these data views. I typically use the Salesforce data view documentation, which I actually couldn't pick it up anymore. I think it got redirected or changed. Matthews, I was digging into Matthews's data views, and it's great. He's got these organized in the groups we're going to be talking about today, provide some really good commentary and details. So let's go down to this subscriber data views. Let's take a quick look at what is provided here. So, first of all, the value for the data view is up here that you can grab. And then what Matthews has got down here are all of the fields that are in that data extension. So that's that formula that he has for every single one of his data views. So when you're building your query, you can, you want to pull this into your from statement, the subscribers, and then your select statement, you want to pull out all of your data from from these fields. So let's just do that just for fun, and let's validate that what the data retention is for those subscribers. So I'm going to copy this subscriber data view, and we're going to go into Marketing Cloud, and we're going to go into Query Studio. For those who aren't familiar with Query Studio, it's a free app that Salesforce provides, allows you to do a bunch of SQL work without creating a data extension and a query in Marketing Cloud. So we're just going to do, we might not need a where, but creating your basic query, you've got the two key areas, the select and the from. So we're going to pull this data from the subscribers data view, and we're not going to add all the fields here. Let's just add the subscriber key. Let's add the date joined. That can be kind of helpful just to see the data retention. Let's see if there's anything else in here that we'd want to use. Let's take a look at this date unsubscribed. I'm kind of curious to see what is captured here, just because of there's unsubscribe in the subscription data views. So let's put that in here as well. And let's run that just to see. Now, great thing about Query Studio, it's going to give us an output of that data. So we can validate what's available in this data view and how many of those subscribers. Is it only the last 6 months of subscribers who've date joined, or is it the full list of subscribers? So let's just take a look at the bottom here. You can see from the data that's coming out here, first of all, we've got some inconsistent subscriber keys, but I think we're just testing. Again, this is just our test environment, but hopefully most of us have some pretty consistent subscriber keys. We've got contact IDs and lead IDs. And then you can see here, we can sort of got a window, this date join. You can see that this is going back pretty far, right? 2018, 2023, 2017. So probably a pretty good indicator with this data view that this includes all of that data. And just one more check, if it makes sense, let's just, validate this against all subscribers. So I'm just going to duplicate this tab. And we're going to go into our all subscribers data extension in Email Studio, and just check the count of all subscribers. So we've got 568 subscribers and all subscribers, which is about what we're seeing here in the data view. So I'm a little bit off there, but anyway, so that's good to know. And the reason why we're sort of going through these data views in a little bit more detail related to this is that you probably don't need to add the underscore subscribers to your history automation, because it has the entire history of those subscribers for the most part. If you're doing this within a business unit, have a parent business unit, you might see some different data. Your underscore subscribers might only be at the parent level, so there might be some value there, if you're doing it in an enterprise standpoint. So let's go back. First of all, any questions about what we just walked through? As far as, just want to quickly get right into those data views and just identify the unique characteristics of these data views. Some of them have a 6-month retention, some of them don't. Okay, fantastic. Go back into the deck. Okay, so Shubham, will it be different for different business units? Yes, it will be. So, for instance, we were working with a client, and the underscore subscribers only provided the subscribers at the admin level, not at the individual business unit level. So it can differ depending on business units. Matt, I don't know if you have if you had any experience with the underscore subscribers data view, and any feedback to share on differences that you saw in your environments in the past.
Yeah, for the most part, I was always working in a single BU tenant, and especially depending on your role, you may not have access to that parent level data as well. So I think illustrating here, especially within Query Studio, you're able to kind of test and see what your results are, just like Tim is illustrating, and that'll kind of help you suss out, do you have access to the parent level stuff? Do you have access to the enterprise level stuff? It's great to kind of compare just to see where you're at and figure out whether you actually have access, or maybe you need to escalate this and try to ask a system admin to pull some of this data for you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, and the source is from all contacts that are available in the BU. Yeah, that's a great question. All contacts versus all subscribers. They're not necessarily one and the same, but we can cover that in another meeting. Okay, let's go back to our deck. And that wraps up the subscriber data view. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of those data views, the ones that you're probably going to use more often. This is those helpful data views that have all the details about your email sends. So we'll start at the top with job. You may need job, you may not. Job's got a lot of great details that you won't see in the specific data views like sent, open, click, bounce. It also is a great way to link to other data extensions. So if you need to get from click, to journeys and you're doing job evaluation, you can use job to make that connection. So definitely a good data view to be familiar with. And then we've got the typical engagement data views: sent, open, click, bounce, and then complaint. So these data views have a 6 months worth of retention, primarily used for engagement reporting. We're going to dig into the click data view in a lot more detail. The subscription data view can be also helpful. Unsubscribe gives you, when that event happens. Business units unsubscribe can be also very helpful. This is also in all records. So within your business unit, if someone unsubscribes, they are in this data view. They're in that data view until they become active again, and then they're removed there. So it can be a handy unsubscribe. I'll give you a use case for how we used it. If in our last engagement, it was with a client that had multiple business units. and we could not query use the underscore subscriber in the sub business unit to find an unsubscribed status on those subscribers. It only pulled in that subscriber status at the admin level. So our only option was to use the business unit unsubscribes data view. That gave us a picture of within that business unit whether they had unsubscribed or not. So it can be handy for that. Definitely look to that business unit unsubscribe. And then list subscribers, it gives you some more details related to specific lists that you're working with. If you do a lot of journeys, they can also be very helpful and worth probably adding to your automation. So if you need specifics about journeys in general, specific activities within journey, if you're doing some tracking of that, definitely worth utilizing within your data views. So when you're thinking about this history data view automation, the data views that you're probably going to want to include, most likely all of the email data views. You may, if you want to keep unsubscribed, that can probably be a good one to add. And then if you use Journey a lot, probably worth adding there as well. Again, you don't need to add subscribers. So it's good just to know all the details of those different data views so that you're not adding, additional queries to your automation. And you're also not, capturing data that you don't necessarily need to store. Okay, let's take a closer look at the click data view. We covered a little bit of this when we looked at subscriber. So again, the underscore click, that's where you pull how do you identify this in your query. The job ID is going to be a helpful field there in all of those email data views. Again, this is going to allow you to connect to the job and then allow you to connect to other data views. Obviously, subscriber key is important. It's going to identify who that subscriber is, who clicked, the event date, when that click happened. Oh, sorry. There's quite a few other fields here, the URL, link name, and link content. These are all incredibly helpful because it identifies which click. So if you send an email, you've got 5 different links, different images that click. That's going to give you the detail to identify which click was there. Sometimes you might use URL. Sometimes you might use a link name if you have an alias. Sometimes you might use link content. It's also incredibly helpful. Gives you all that detail. You can break down by email, which of those links were clicked. The is unique is also kind of cool. It is the that first click. You don't want to overinflate your engagement results and include all the clicks. So if someone clicked 5 times on one email, you want to have that just be one click if you're looking at overall engagement reports, and that's what is unique will do. And then the trigger send fields can also be helpful to use as data points to make connections to other data views, and also unique sends like triggered sends. Sometimes these keys will give you and be able to link to other variables. All right, that's a little bit overview of click. So let's talk about our use case, and then we're going to go and build the click data view from scratch query. So our first use case is that we're a marketer and we want to send out a list of our subscribers, our prospects, our customers. And, we want to be, smart about who we're sending to. So we want to only send to those, we really want to break up our segments into a couple of different groups. We want those who've clicked on an email between 0 and 6 months, highly engaged. We want those who clicked from 6 to 12 months. And then we want those from 12 to 24 months. So, we work with clients where they're capturing this data in like a universal data extension, by the subscriber. We're updating on a daily basis when they click. Some, might use that. You can also use data views, but if you needed something beyond 6 months, that wouldn't be there. So that's an example of why it would be helpful to have a data view history specifically on clicks. Give you another example, another use case. You want to, customer service wants to do some housekeeping at the end of the year. Obviously, you want to do this a little bit more frequent basis. But maybe they're, at the end of the year, they're like, hey, I want a query of all of those customers who bounced this year. If you're not capturing that information on a regular basis, you go back to those data views, it only captures that data for the last 6 months. So another reason why it might be helpful to build those queries, build the history automation so you're keeping that data, capturing that on a daily basis. All right, so let's go into the platform and let's build out that query for our click data view. Before I do that, I want to see if there's any questions. Okay, throw some questions in the channel if you have any questions. Okay, let's go back to Matthew's document. Let's go down and navigate to the click. And we're going to go into Query Studio and we're going to modify this to, we'll just refresh this. We'll get a new query going. So let's go up to the click. And we're just going to copy this in here. And just going to go through the exercise. It's a little bit tedious, but let's do, we're not going to do all the fields for this exercise, but let's just do a couple of key fields so we can see the data come out. We want to take a look at that job ID, see what that looks like. Let's do all four of these. This can be helpful. Really, I guess ideally, it's best practice if you want to do a match of your of these events by all four of these IDs. It's not absolutely necessary. Usually in the send log, you have these four fields representing a single send, and it can be helpful to use all four of these, like say this, all four of these on an on statement when you're matching data. So it was good just to sort of take a look at what all those different data points are. Let's pull in that subscriber key. Let's see what else we got. Definitely event date. We're going to copy all of these, this great data here. Again, it all depends on what your use case is and how you're identifying your email sends. Any one of these data points can be helpful. And I'll give you a couple examples of how this has been helpful in the past. Okay. I think our meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. I have to reach out to JB. I don't think she used an upgraded Zoom link. So I do apologize if this ends. If you're interested, I'm just going to join right back into this Zoom. Keep it going till 9 o'clock. All right, is unique. It's going to be helpful. And let's also get these triggered send fields because they are kind of unique and just interesting to see what we get for data. Okay, we're going to hold off on the where for a second. Just for now, I'm just going to, so I can keep my where, I'm just going to, it's always going to be populated, but we're going to hit run there. Another thing just to mention on Matthias's documentation, which is just awesome. He's got a lot of really good notes in here. So like he said here, job ID, list ID, batch ID, subscriber ID, to match other views. Sometimes you can just use the job ID, but ideally these four are probably your best practice. We're going to get into this is unique. So really good stuff. So question from Matt, or point, those triggered send fields have slightly different spellings. Another experience, if you're not copying and pasting, it can trip you up. That's a good point. All right, let's take a look at this data. So, as you can sort of see by the event date, I didn't do a order by on this, but it looks like it's coming in that, no, not really, but you can sort of see, I think, August is as far back as this data goes. This is only 6 months worth of data, unfortunately. So it sort of, calls out the difference between that subscriber data view and the data view for the click, just to show that length of that data. Here are those 4 IDs, which really is the best practice to identify a unique send. Sometimes you can get away with just job ID. Event date, obviously very helpful when that click happened. The domain that was used to, for the click that was clicked. And then here's that great data that comes through the URL. Again, what, use case that we've used for this, we've had automations that are listening for somebody who's clicked on a particular email. And if that, that URL has, begins with a certain, address, then, we would, drop that person into a journey, etc. So that URL field can be very helpful. If you have in your HTML, a link alias that can be a little bit more simpler because it's very specific. Again, URL can be very unique. And then the content itself, I think that's just the link, the specific link itself in the coding. There's the is unique, the ones and the zeros. And yeah, here are those customer keys. Matt, I mean, I think I've more used this key. I think I've used this to sort of link to a triggered send. I think sort of seeing a triggered send have a specific ID like this, less so much this customer key. But how have you used this in the past, this trigger send definition object ID or these fields?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much the same. I don't think I've had a lot of use for the triggered send customer key field, at least not that's jumping out in my memory. I find the trigger or send definition object ID field to be very useful, especially with my journey builder sends. So that'll be created underlying, and I'm not sure if it's on version or if it's over time, but I believe your job ID for a journey builder send may actually change over time, and that trigger or send object ID does not. So that's been super helpful for me with a long running journey, maybe an onboarding journey or something similar. To try to make sure that I'm still tracking particular clicks or particular email sends or opens from there. It's a little bit easier for me to match on that trigger or send object ID than the job ID. A little more bulletproof long term.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Any questions from anybody on what we're seeing here from the click data view? Okay. Okay. So, fantastic. Obviously very good to, in your process, before you're creating your data extensions for these data view history automations, just to take a look at your data. What data do you actually need? What you need to capture? You could just capture all the fields, but sometimes it's good to be mindful about that. Which data views do you need history on? Which fields do you need history on? Okay, let's take a look. Just to save a little bit of time, I did create a the data extension and a query to populate this data, but I wanted to take a look at the data extension in particular because it's not, just as easy as what we just dropped into the select statement here. You have to be mindful of what these fields are all about. And I don't know if this is completely accurate what we filled out here, but just wanted to highlight. As we looked at that data, very helpful in the Query Studio to take a look at that data. It's going to help inform what you need to fill out in your data extension. So let's take a look at, just to help us understand the, when you're building that data extension for those data view history, what you have available for you as a guide. So as far as what, Matt's use has got documented, and I think this is as good as it gets. He's able to provide the data type, which is nice. If it's a number, text field, date, etc. And also, I think this is nullable. It means that that field may or may not be there. So that's kind of helpful to know when you're populating your data extension. What's not here is the length, which can be tricky, especially with like URL. So I think that's just something that it's worthwhile being wary about, or when you're working through these data extensions, just to think about that. So, my approach here on this, might not be the best approach, but I copied over the data type, followed that. I made all of these fields nullable just because this data set is probably safer from an automation standpoint. Just to make them all nullable, even the ones that are supposedly not nullable. If you didn't check this box, and for some reason there wasn't a data available on that field, obviously if those are familiar with Automation Studio, it will, it'll throw an error. So it might just be safe to make them all nullable. And then for those values, it's going to depend on your length and depending on your use case. So subscriber key, I put that at 255 or 254. That could take care of the use case if it's an email address, or our typical use case is contact or lead ID. I'm not exactly sure what that length would be. And let's see, domain URL, I put that in as 4,000. I think you're still able to, in Marketing Cloud, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you don't put it in a value, just leave it blank, I think it's unlimited. So that might be, consider, you might want to have URL be unlimited there, depending on how long those URLs are. And then I think everything else, so just be mindful of the length. And then I also put down here a created date, just so that you can populate when that, when you're populating that data on, you're going to be populating, when you create this query in this data extension, you're going to populate your entire 6 months worth of data. And then you're also going to build the query to run on a daily basis, just to populate the last day's worth of data. So it just might be helpful when you create that record, just to validate the date that it was created. So that's really the basics of setting up a data extension. Again, just be mindful of those lengths.